Now we have reached the fifth and last book on the Book of Psalms. This book reflects on what happens in the Book of Deuteronomy and the refuge into the Promised Land and being able to come back to Jerusalem. One of the things that stands out in this book is that it's written for public worship. Also in this book, God now has a name, Jehovah. So welcome to Leah's Bible Psalms. Never in my life I would thought I would see humor in the Bible text, and I was wrong. In line 4, it's pure comedy gold. So some got lost in the barren desert. Some try 5,000 men, and all with that women, children, elderly, not to mention the livestock, horses and carriages they came with them, and the organization it took to move so many people, just to take a bad turn to the right halfway through the goal. Well, as I said before, when it comes to Exodus, that the story of Moses, he was not a scout. Even though I doubt he had a map in the first place. It is approximately 500 kilometers from point A to point B. And if you walk like 10 kilometers a day, that journey will take about 50 days. But not to Moses and his men. That took them 40 years. That is 2 generations. Back to seriousness. The main reason it took them 40 years was that to get to the land of the main reason was that Moses didn't went to the land of Canaan, was that the land of Palestine was in the way and was controlled by the 5 city-states, Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. And they had a pact between them, like nature. In someone who's in one city, the other cities would support them. Keep in mind this in mind, because in line 16 it says, "He crosses the gate of copper, the iron gates he smashes." And my initial reaction was, did I just read about an explosion? Weapons like Greek fire were available, and other technology from both the Mesopotamian and the Persian empires, so it's not that far-fetched. But the comedy doesn't end here, because in line 27, the next comic situation appears. It is established that the verse is about ships and the sea. So the line, "they wobbled and struggled like drunks," is just a fancy way of describing seasickness. And everyone that has experienced seasickness knows that it can take days before you're feeling normal again. And nowadays we know that seasickness depends on a balance problem in your ear, caused by heavy waves or wind on a body of water that's big enough so you can't see the horizon, probably. But all jokes aside, because in the next verse we can easily see the duality of both God and the writing style of Bible itself. Here you can see an active God that does things like turning lakes into deserts and vice versa. This is poetry in a recycling bin. The first part of this psalm, in line 2 to 6, it is hymn of come and worship God with music and song. And there's beautiful poetry here. Wake up, my soul, wake up to harp and lyre. We all know that with the right kind of music, it touches your soul and something divine happens. And it can be everything from the lyrics to the artist or the instrument. And sometimes even all those three components resonate together, and you can feel the music inside you and almost taste it too. Like Dan Vasc used to say, it's all about the music that gives you power to have yourself an epic day. Music can be that kind of power over us. 2.5 millennia ago, they were onto something. What I meant with the recycling bin was that in line 7 to 14 are identical to Psalm 60. And this was my reflection over that psalm was, even before the verses of this psalm even begins, there are some instruction to the reader. And also some background story of it all. And the instructions was, it was short and simple to teach. So what is it that King David wants us to learn? That God is a merciful God, and do right by him, he will do right by you. I've said it before, and I will say it again. I am not in any way, shape or form anything near a medical personnel. But when I read some of the songs that King David has supposed to have been written, I can't think of anything else that this is a person that has mental health issues. After some research, I'm learning, I'm leaning more to psychosis, but this is just my theory. But the words in the psalm says it all. King David feels surrounded and abandoned at the same time. And from line 6 to 19, it can be interpreted as curses that he has received from his opponents. And now I have seen this kind of prayer before, someone that had prayed for someone else to lose income, spouses, etc. And for me, those kind of prayers has nothing to do in either of the book religions. Then we have the second part of this psalm. For all the bad things that have happened in the first part of the psalm is now made up for all the goodness that God does. Dualism, once again. But it is the very last line of the psalm that gets reassuring that God loves us all in the end. He stands by the poor man's side and saves him from those who judge. Here is a King David again. And whatever his feeling were in the last psalm, it is long gone, but in this one. What is special about this psalm, it is how it is written, more like a monologue from God to God's chosen emperor, aka the ruler in Jerusalem. But later on, it would be a lot of scholars interpret this psalm as a prophecy to the Messiah, Jesus. So what does the psalm say? The first line contains a promise. Your enemies will be conquered. And my thoughts go right to Conan Barbarian again. Here comes something that important that was probably very common in the ancient warfare, but now we get documented, so to speak. The victory gesture of using your enemies as straws. To put your foot on your conquered enemies. The emperor or kings during this time also functions as priests in the temples. And how do we know that? That is, in line 4, we get a clue. The Lord has made an oath that he cannot break. You are a priest forever. And today, when you become an ordinated priest, you are that for your whole life, no matter what, if you work as one or not, unless you deny the ordination, of course, but that's another story. Being a priest is more than having an occupation. It is a calling to do large work. In the last line, something happens that would be both a legacy and legendary at the same time. The ruler would drink from a special spring or creek, and drink it from them would give them extra power or more status than before. And that ritual and point of view would live on all the way into the 19th century. So, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and share the content. Make sure to subscribe to the channel too, so you don't miss out on anything. I hope you want to browse around in here. I have something for both the seeker and the believer. And in the description down below, you will find useful links to my other social media and a link to my PayPal account if you want to donate to the channel. So, with that said, and the last thing, if you don't know what to do, at least be kind. Love and light to you all. Bye!